In stark contrast to the steady hum of her presence that had always permeated the house, the silence was deafening. Lauren, a month ago, my wife of 7 years, had said, "I need space." Her voice was flat and devoid of the warmth I had grown accustomed to. It was a Friday night, just like any other, until she dropped the bomb. I had asked her what was wrong, if I had done something, and she simply shook her head, avoiding eye contact, and said, "She needs to think about us, about her." The first week was a blur of confusion and hurt, and I replayed our life together, looking for any signs that I had missed if I had been so preoccupied with my own world that I hadn't noticed her drifting away. I worked my carpentry job by day, and the steady pounding of my hammer did little to stop the chaos inside. At night, the house echoed with her absence, and I cooked for one, ate in silence, and stared at the empty side of the bed. I felt like a ghost in my own house. Then, the anger began to build gradually and insidiously, then it became a raging torrent. How dare she just up and leave me hanging in uncertainty? Did she think I was some sort of doormat, someone she could put on hold while she worked herself out? I poured my frustration into my work, taking on more projects, working longer hours, and my hands. A month later, on a Sunday evening, as if nothing had happened, she returned with a suitcase in hand and a nervous smile on her face. I didn't rush to greet her, didn't give her a hug or a kiss. I just stood in the living room watching her, letting her feel the weight of the silence. Raw and bleeding by the end of the day, I started going to the gym, turning my pain into muscle, and lifting weights as a tangible way to vent my rage. "I'm back," she said in a hesitant voice. "I missed you." I stared at her, the words forming in my head, the anger still simmering beneath the surface. I didn't say a word, just gestured towards the living room and watched as she looked around. It wasn't the same living room she'd left behind while she was gone. I had carefully and slowly transformed it. I had pulled up the old carpets to reveal the gorgeous dark hardwood underneath. The walls had been painted a cool, calming blue in place of the bland beige we'd had before. The old, worn furniture had been replaced with sleek modern pieces, and the entire space was unrecognizable. I had rebuilt it, I had rebuilt myself, but it was what was in the middle of the room that made her gasp. There were only pictures of me in the center of the room, which I had lined up from the floor to the ceiling with the framed memories of our life together. She looked at the wall, at the blank spots where her face should have been, in silent realization as I ripped out all of the pictures of her, removing her from our shared past and leaving huge gaps in what we had created together. The anxious smile vanished from her eyes, to be replaced by a shocked and horrified expression. She attempted to explain herself, but the words stuck in her throat. "Where were you, Lauren?" I finally said in a low, dangerous voice. "Where did you spend the last month while you were doing all that thinking?" She hesitated, her eyes darting around the room as if looking for a way out, and then she opened her mouth and closed it again, her cheeks flushing. I said, "That's interesting," and I pulled out my phone to show her a picture I had found online. It was a picture of her laughing with another man, not at her sister's place, but on a beach. I had discovered him too, a guy from her job, some SMY finance bro, wearing a designer watch and wearing a fake smile. She looked at the photo, her face drained of color, knowing she was caught, and her voice trembled. "Oh, I think it looks exactly like Lauren." I replied, my voice calm, almost gentle. "You wanted space, well you got it. You got yourself a new guy, a new life, didn't you? Go have it." She sank to the floor, tears streaming down her face, the weight of her actions crashing down on her. I watched her unmoved. I felt nothing for her anymore. All the hurt, the love, the anger had all burned away, leaving behind a cold, empty space. I walked past her out the door, leaving her sobbing in the middle of the room. I drove to the address I'd found for her new lover. It was a swanky apartment building downtown. I waited parked across the street. When I saw him leave, I pulled up, blocking him into the driveway. He looked surprised, then his face turned arrogant as he recognized me. "You must be Lauren's husband," he said, smirking. "She told me about you." That was enough, I erupted, grabbing him by the collar and pulling him out of his car. He was taller than me, but I was stronger. I punched him hard right in the face and he crumpled to the floor. I kicked him again and again, letting all the rage I'd balled up pour out. He was no match for me. I left him gasping for air on the cold concrete, his pricey clothes covered in blood and dirt, and I yelled my voice. It wasn't the most mature way to handle things, but I didn't care. Over the course of the following week, I watched and enjoyed learning about the aftermath of his career being ruined. Lauren had been fired from her job for the affair and for her poor performance while she'd been distracted. He had a black eye, a broken nose, and the entire ordeal had been captured on security cameras, and people had seen his face on social media, where a video had gone viral. He tried to deny it all, But the truth always comes to the surface, and he lost his job, his friends, and his reputation. He became a pariah, a cautionary tale. The world he had built for himself had fallen apart just as I'd wanted it to, and Lauren never saw him again. She didn't even attempt to fight my divorce. I had taken charge, I had prevailed, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. The hurt of betrayal persisted, but it was no longer overwhelming because I had discovered that even in the face of the biggest setbacks, there was a way to recover your own story. My life had been rebuilt, and it was now stronger than it had been.